Yes, absolutely. I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, okay.
How you?
Okay. I'm good. I'm good. How about yourself?
I am very good. Still in the
Okay.
office.
Oh,
If you
okay.
hear some sounds of people singing, it's not me. It's actually my neighbor next door because they've got a karaoke lessons going on, and
Oh, okay. It's okay.
yeah. So
That's good.
my neighbor actually conducts some training sessions.
Okay. All
Sometimes
right.
we have got calls at this hour, and I'm usually asked, whether I'm having a party in the office, but no,
Okay.
I don't have a party. My
All right.
neighbor
Okay. Okay.
has
So thanks. Okay. Thanks for that information. So we won't be worried if we hear anything. So,
nope.
uh, so I already introduced you earlier before you came on, but I just wanted
Yes,
to.
I heard
Yes. Oh,
as I
okay.
was waiting for you to accept, I heard that you were talking to yourself, and you were giving me a glowing account of what you know of me, and it's pretty
Yes.
good.
Yes. Yes.
The only problem is I cannot say much about you because I don't know much about you except the fact that you're a assistant professor in NTU. So do I call you Prof or what do I call
No,
you
call me
during this
Walid,
entire
please.
conversation?
Call me Walid.
No,
Walid. Yes.
no, no, no. I call you Prof. How's that? Do you like
It's
that?
okay.
I call you.
No, no, no. I don't like that. So call me Walid. My students call me Walid also. My students call me Walid, so that's fine.
Oh, I
Yeah.
see, I
So
see. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So how long
So
have you been a professor at NTU?
by the way, I'm asking the questions. I'm supposed to
No,
reply.
but I want to know as well. So I gotta find out because
It's
you
okay.
seem to know everything about me. I did not go do a LinkedIn
Don't
check on
worry.
you, so I want to know how long you
My
professor.
audience knows me. Anyway, only a
Oh,
couple of years. I've joined.
goodness,
I
I
joined
gotta find out.
NTU in. I joined NTU in 2017. So I've been an assistant professor for 2 years. Before that, I was a postdoctoral fellow. Yeah. So,
Right. So why
so
aren't you in
yeah.
politics yet?
It's
No,
not
they
for
are.
me.
The
It's
laughter
not for
isn't
me.
actually response. Huh?
It's
It's
really
not for you
not
to
for
be in
me.
politics.
I think
No,
really,
no.
I think some people are better suited. I think I would just lose the election, so I wouldn't do well. So it's
No, but
just out
that's
of
not
that.
true. You should always try. Remember what Obama said: step up, dive in, stay at it.
I'm more of a Bernie than an Obama person. So, but anyway, anyway, so let's get to it. As the audience can see, Mr. Jose also has a good sense of humor from what I've seen and know of him. So hopefully tonight will be fun. The target is about 40 minutes.
All
Okay,
right.
so yeah,
All right.
so
About 40
first
minutes, but we're not on Zoom. We are on IG Live. So why is there a 40-minute break?
40 minutes is
Is this
the
like is
attention
this like the,
span.
is this like
Attention
the free
span,
version of IG Live or something?
the attention span, the attention span of an average student. Right. So you asked me why I joined politics, right? So the question
Yeah.
I really
Yes.
wanted to ask you
Yes.
later on
Okay.
is why you joined the SPP. But firstly, what went wrong for you? Because I think there were a lot of things that went right. Getting 40% against an established PAP candidate, I think it's a good result in isolation. But if you look at the national swing against the PAP of
Mm,
about 9%, then it has to be viewed
mm.
as a disappointment, doesn't it?
Well, yes, it was a disappointment, but I mean, I always look on the positive of everything. First and foremost, let's not forget that I was up against a candidate who has been there for 20 years. He was there since what, year 2000, maybe slightly before that. And that means he's already got a very, very strong connection with people in Potong Pasir. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, he's a seasoned campaigner. He's a seasoned campaigner. Let's not forget that, when you're a seasoned campaigner with a very good grassroots team and the people who have been in and out of battles since 2000 or 2001, that means, I'm always going to be up against it. But on the bright side, let's not forget that apart from the 40% returns, the SPP is a small party. We consider a small party. The SPP is considered a small party, and my returns actually was the highest among all the small parties. And in fact, I also had higher returns than some of the SDP candidates, higher returns than some of the PSP candidates, and I also got a higher return than Hong Chuang in Hougang. Sorry, Hong Chuang, but it's a fact. So So in which respect, I kind of think, that, be it as it may, I looked back and thought, it was a damn good battle, and I enjoyed every second of it.
Right. So, I mean, it's clear that, you have a very endearing personality, and even in your interview...
Endearing in what way, Walid? So, endearing in what way? You must explain that. Endearing personality.
I'm going to explain.
Endearing in what way? No, but you can't use that word and say, personality. Right?
I've seen your interview with PJ Tam, and you had a good sense of humor, it seems, and you clearly wanted to have an emotional connection with the voters, right? And I think based on what I've heard from people there, you did that pretty well. So my question is clearly that isn't enough, isn't it? You need to have more than an endearing personality.
Yes, you have got it is a multi-pronged strategy. Okay, it's always a multi-pronged approach. The emotional connection is just one part of it. Second, you got to have a very good, strong team, your backroom team, to support you throughout the entire campaign, and actually even before that. Third, you must really be able to connect with people at an intellectual level, because the electorate is going to be made up of multiple groups. You'll have your elderly, you will have your first-time voters, you'll have your PMETs, you'll have your people who have been new residents in the estate, you'll have new citizens. You must be able to connect with them on multiple levels. And what's the unfortunate thing is, you're never going to be able to meet every single one of them in the course of your time spent on the ground. Even though it's a couple of years, you will not be able to meet many of them. Some of them are in condominiums, and you'll never get access to condominiums unless the condo actually gives you access. You'll never be able to meet everybody in their private homes, because sometimes when you get down there and knock on doors, not every one of them would be in, or sometimes they send someone else out to the gates. And that's the reality of it. It's not like as though I'm going to be facing that alone. I think all candidates face this problem. So having an endearing personality aside, or having an emotional connection to people, I think what's really important is the visibility and the ability to reach out to as many people as possible across the spectrum,
right,
in a short period of time as possible.
Right.
You should try it sometime and see whether it actually, whether you can actually enjoy it.
I don't think I'll win.
No, but you have to try it, right? I mean, how are you going to know if you haven't even tried it? You should try it once. At least do it once. I'm not saying for who, but try it once.
I mean, it's like my son, me telling my son, you should never try drugs, and my son saying, how would you know? You haven't tried it, right?
But that's a good. Please tell your son, drugs are bad. Ask him to watch Cocaine Coast on Netflix, and he'll probably know what it means. Not take it.
Right.
It destroys everybody.
Right, and also that's the impression a lot of people have of politics, right? That's a difficult, not only difficult, sometimes it can get dirty and messy and gutter. And that's why a lot of people prefer to watch and observe and rather than get involved. Although I have to say, you and your opponent both conducted yourself in a very gentlemanly, very amicable manner. And I think, hopefully we see more of that throughout Singapore. We didn't exactly see that throughout all the constituencies, but hopefully we see that. My second.
Oh yes, and I must tell you that just to add on to that point about gentlemanly, I must say that I actually had breakfast with my opponent and his right hand man just 2 weeks ago. Nice. It's just that we did not take photos and post it or anything, but it was a promise we gave to each other that
our Speaker of Parliament did it. Why didn't you do it?
But it was an opportunity for us just to catch up, because we made a promise to each other at the nomination center, regardless of the result, we should catch up for breakfast or lunch, after the GE is over. And we both caught up, and what we did was we had a bit of a sharing, we had a good laugh, we talked a bit of football, because interestingly was in 2006, when I was still a journalist, I actually bumped into Sito Ipin in Dortmund before a World Cup match. We were both queuing up to buy drinks at the stadium. So he was
Oh,
just two persons in front of me, and I tapped him and I said, "Aren't you Sito?" And yeah, so we were just talking a bit of football, and it was yeah, we just caught up and had a chat. I kind of shared with him some ideas. I shared with him some of the things which some of the feedback I received, and yeah, and I think that's the kind of approach which I have been talking about throughout the
right.
entire campaign of being able to work together regardless of the flag you bear politically, because at the end of it, we all Singaporeans, and we stand by the same flag.
Right. I mean, that's really a heartwarming story, and I hope we hear more of such stories. And the fact that you didn't post it, clearly you were not doing it for the likes, and which is not wrong as well. Politicians have to do that. There is a comment here that Mr. Jose, hope you can compete in Potong Pasir in 2025. Hope you can win. That's assuming Potong Pasir SMC is still around in 2025.
Well, yeah, Iqbal Mazlan is probably one of my most ardent supporters. I see him, liking my posts or even sharing stuff on
Okay.
stories, and I really thank him very much for his enthusiasm. But let me just point out a fact, and this is information which can be attained just by doing a little bit of research online. I think by the time the next elections comes by, there will be more voters in Bidadari than there will be in Potong Pasir estate. Bidadari is a huge estate. So if this entire boundaries, has Bidadari and Potong Pasir and Jusing and Macpherson Gardens Estate and Senate Estate and all the condos around it, my reckoning is, it'll be the makeup of the town will be completely different, because Bidadari will have a huge chunk of voters. So I'm just saying that, factually, if you do the research, you'll be able to see that it'll be a very different town. And whether or not it
And your
remains...
chances are higher of winning or lower, assuming it's not gerrymandered too much.
Hey, but Professor Walid, you're making this assumption that I might stand or
Exactly.
that I'll stay in Potong Pasir. So,
Based on this question.
My view is I will just continue having to work and help people on the ground as much as possible. There are some things which are within my control, and what's within my control is how I spend my time, how I reach out to help people regardless where the area is. And what's not within my control is worrying about is the boundary changes, and I must not be fixated on what's going to happen then. I must be fixated about being able to help people on the ground. I think that's most important to me, regardless where I actually go and sort out.
Sure, but surely every politician wants to help people on the ground, and surely winning is the best way to help people on the ground. So surely you must think about crafting strategies to win.
That's not true, though. That's not absolutely true, because some of us, not some of us, but someone like me sometimes feels that maybe being involved in a political party... Oh, sorry, but before I continue saying all of this, let me just say that these are all my personal views and do not reflect the views of any of the organizations in which I sit on, politically or non-political. So these are all my personal views. So which means that, if anyone out there who's waiting to have that aha moment on me, too bad, I've already had my disclaimer. So, but, I was a personality outside of politics, because of my various roles, because of my roles in public service, because of my time as a journalist, because of my roles in in non-profits, and I was really a voice outside of politics. So that means I will be able to continue doing my work outside of politics. So sometimes the question I ask myself is, am I more effective in or outside of politics? And that's a question which I grapple with all the time. In fact, I've got friends who are always giving me different perspectives on this. And right. I don't disagree with both sides. It's just that, getting involved in politics is always an emotional as much as an intellectual decision to make. Right. And for me, sometimes I wonder what would be like to be involved outside of politics, which is why I think my work in sports, right, in sports-related matters, actually allows me that opportunity to sometimes not use my political positions to talk about an issue, because sometimes I think, it complicates my work in the sports sector. especially because I'm involved in politics. Because not everything not everything I say in the sports sector should be politicized. And sometimes I worry. Sometimes when I say something, it's going to end up being, Jose Raymond is the chairman of the political party, and he's saying this, but it's not a political matter which I want to bring up. But it's a sports matter, and sports again also transcends politics. You see,
right?
So that's my conundrum, which I face sometimes.
Right, I understand, and I think that is something a lot of people who want to join politics, they think about the same thing as well. So on your party specifically, is it merely a Mr. Chiam party, a Chiam See Tong party, and the SPP is just relying on SPP's on Mr. Chiam's name? And there was a person, a resident of Bishan Toa Payoh, who asked, why is it that the SPP spend more money there than in Potong Pasir? Is it because they're riding just merely on Mr. Chiam's name?
I did not spend more money in Potong Pasir than...
No. The Bishan Toa
Payoh
spend more. Yeah.
Bishan Toa Payoh spent more money.
Yes. According to the...
spent more money.
Yeah.
Bishan Toa Payoh is a GRC, what? Bishan Toa Payoh is a GRC, right?
Per voter, right?
Per voter, I see.
Yeah.
I see, but you it's how you frame it, right? I maintain and manage my costs very well. I manage my expenses pretty well. If you take a look at the results, that's one, and you take a look at in terms of the volume of share of voice in the online space throughout the elections, I had more share of voice in the online space than the Bishan Toa Payoh team. So it only shows that, I mean, the fact that you are having this conversation with me now, after the elections, also means that there's something which I did was right, which you think was interesting enough for you to want to talk to me. So what it means is that even though I may have spent slightly less, it means that I actually have spent a very effectively in trying to get my message out. And I did it mainly, I managed to do it in effectively, I think in terms of expenditure, because I planned early. I had managed to get my manifesto ready by March. I was able to get my posters printed by April. So I did not have to rush and face the whole backlog, the backlog of when the elections is called and everyone's trying to get the work done. And I think that also actually elevated costs a little bit. But I managed to do all of it like way before the elections was called. So the moment the EBRC was announced its the boundaries, my posters went for print. And I think that's why I managed to get very reasonable prices and maintain my costs very effectively.
What about the Chiam See Tong question? So is the SPP too reliant on the Chiam See Tong factor?
I think you must look at it in this way. And okay, the question which I want to ask you is, how did I run my campaign in Potong Pasir? Like in Potong Pasir, right? How did I run my campaign throughout the entire 9 days of campaigning? I ran it on my own with my entire team, and we actually went to the ground ourselves. And throughout the entire campaign, I need you to ask this question. I need you to answer, look at the research and ask yourselves this question throughout the entire campaign from nomination day all the way to election day. Did I use Chiam See Tong's name? What was I talking about? What exactly was I referring to in the course of my campaign? Was I talking about the past or was I talking about the future? Was I talking about the services which I could render? So think about that in that way. But let me just say that in today's context, people will not look to the past. They are going to look to the candidate, scrutinize the candidate left, right, and center, up and down, and then make that decision. Because they know that the person whom they mark X is going to be the one they're going to have to be the one who's going to end up serving them. They're not going to look to the history. They're going to look to the past. And I think that's also one of the issues which the ruling party probably even, or the activists of the ruling party also sometimes grapple with. Sometimes bringing up what happened in 65 or 70 and 75, or how it was done in the past. It's not going to help them in the end, because people are more interested in figuring out what can you do for me down the line or in the future. I think that's more important.
Right.
So we have got to
I agree with you.
move away. If the perception is that we are a one-man party, we have got to move away from that.
Right.
That's
Okay.
the challenge of this political party
Okay.
or any
I
political
think
party.
I think that's a very good answer. So my question to you is, I cannot help but think that if you were in the Workers' Party, you would be a member of Parliament right now. So my question to you is, did you join the wrong party?
There is no wrong party or right party. We all, like I said earlier, we enter politics for emotional reasons. And there is this emotional connection which I have because in '84 I was in Potong Pasir. Mr. Chiam helped my family when we needed them most in 1990. And I would not be doing this as in like standing for elections in frontline politics for any other political party. That means if today I make a decision to exit the SPP,
Right. And
I will not join any political party.
Even if the leader of the opposition calls you and says,
yes,
we
because
need you, need you, and you replace me in alternate.
No. They need you, Walid. They need you. You are the one. You're the one who's going to be able to do that, play that role.
No, but seriously, if Pritam called you, you would say no, flat out no, or you wouldn't even say
no. I will. Yes, I will say no because I came into this for a reason. There is an emotional connection, and if I exit, that has got to be it. That's it. Because my duty to serve, as a result of whatever emotional connection I has already been fulfilled. Right. I will continue helping people. I will in many other ways, social work, sports activism. That is, like I said, I will be able to continue doing the work which I've done outside of politics. And right. I mean, obviously, because there is life outside of politics, and we do not need to live by it, or for me, it's a way of life for some people. But for me, I believe that I'll still be as effective as a voice outside of politics. But you, like I said, you have got to make that decision. If you get that call, you have got to take that call, Professor Walid. You, the future, your children need you to be in there.
Okay, first of all, right, I think none of us and should have the hero complex. Oh, if I don't do it right, somebody else will do it. So I really, if I don't do it, nobody else will do it, because I always think there will always be somebody out there who will do it. So I really like the question that the statement that you made, and for me myself, I have a lot of, I don't know Mr. Chiam personally, but I have a lot of gratitude to him for doing what he did, especially at that time. It wasn't easy at all, so I have a lot of respect for him. So I can see where you're coming from. If you have that emotional connection with someone like that, you would feel indebted towards him. But the question I have for you is, if just to push you a little bit on this, why is that a good reason for voters to vote for you, to choose you as a member of parliament? If you are joining just based on an emotional connection for Mr. Chiam, shouldn't it be beyond that? Shouldn't it be, I'm joining because I want to serve the country?
Of course. No, you see, it's a multitude of factors, right? You must only get involved in politics if you think you will be able to bring something to the table. What did I bring to the table? I'll tell you. Number one, I'm passionate for people. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy meeting people. And I enjoy listening to problems and trying to figure out how to solve those problems. Second, I am what you call a modernist in my thinking. I think there is a way in which we can move towards a political regime where we are able to work together. And I'm very glad that, I think we are kind of like moving towards that. Right. And let's not forget that I was actually talking about this throughout the entire campaign, being able to work together regardless of the party flag which we bear. Right. and it's good that, I think even today the PM's speech, was talked about, alluding to the fact that, we need to be able to see across our affiliations to party politics, and right. We must be able to find ways to work together. And I think that's what I bring to the table. And we must also be able to have people at the table who will be able to look at problems at ground level and try to see how we can actually make changes at not just municipal level, but national level. So these problems which we face over and over on the ground, whether or not it's a single mother who's unable to find, get an approval for a flat, or whether or not it's issues related to discrimination, we must be able to solve those problems not just on the ground, but then be able to bring it up at a national level so that those problems can be addressed in Parliament. Because all of it has got to lead to policy changes at a national level. You see, if we continue just bringing up questions in relation to municipal issues in Parliament, then how are we addressing issues of living? How are we addressing issues of our least decay of our HDB homes? How are we solving problems of unemployment or potential unemployment? That's what I bring to the table. And you must be able to do it knowing that the system has got its failures and accepting that, we can be that voice for change.
Okay. Yeah,
that's what I brought to the table.
That's
what I thought I brought to the table.
I think you did. And I haven't heard a bad word about you, but it just based on those reasons, right? There is no reason for you to only stand under the SPP then. But I'll just leave it at that.
But like I said,
because you'll bring those things to the table regardless of the party.
Yeah, but like I said, I can still be a voice for people outside of politics. I will be able to open doors for people. I'll be able to help them with roles or jobs if they need help.
What if Mr. Chiam said, Mr. Chiam said, Jose, join Pritam?
I don't think he's going to be able to say that. But I am in awe. Knowing. Especially if you're someone who, like me, who has followed politics, whether or not in history or whether or not as a journalist, I'm in awe of what the Workers' Party has done for itself. And I think that's amazing and immeasurable. And it's going to take, it takes a lot of hard work to get to where they are today, and we must respect that for what they've done. It also shows that something which they've done has worked, and it's worked really, really well. You see, and sometimes you look back in history, or even our own political history, and you realize that sometimes we make, parties make mistakes, and those mistakes are then irreversible. Irreversible. That's how I view it. And but again, to answer your question, and let me put it very, very, because you seem to be like going there all the time. So let me just say once and for all that if I do, for some reason, someday decide to exit SPP, I will not join any other political party, because I came into this for an emotional reason, with something which I believe very strongly in, and I'll have to exit and not be able to, and not just hop to another party, because those are my, that's me those are my, that's my thinking when it comes to whether or not this is something which I can do elsewhere. No, this is not something I can do elsewhere. This is something which I need to do here, and if I can't do it here, then I have got to exit and not join another political party. It will also damage my branding anyway, my personal branding. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, fair enough. So on that note, and since you referenced PM's speech, Pravin asked that the PM criticized the opposition strategy of enticing voters by assuring them the PAP will form government and therefore you can just vote for the opposition. And maybe that was also an indirect criticism, maybe unintended, of voters. So do you have any comments on that statement? Is that a fair statement? Is it wrong for voters to think like that? What are your thoughts?
I think we should never discount the intelligence of the voter.
Exactly.
I think voters in different areas vote according to what they're feeling on the ground. And I believe we have come to a stage in our political maturity where we must respect the voter for how he or she votes, and look at the reasons why they vote a certain way, and not so much give them the respect that they voted a certain way because maybe they feel the PAP can still be the government, or maybe they also felt that there is another party or another bunch of candidates who deserve to be elected because they bring value to the table. I think it's important for us to always analyze where we went wrong and try to do better.
Right.
That's my
agree
response
with you.
to that. Yeah.
I agree with you, and I think no voter owes any party, PAP or the opposition, their vote, and they can vote
Yeah. We've got to
however
work
way
hard
they
for it.
want. And exactly, they need to be earned, the votes. So
Exactly.
another question I would have for you is, as a minority, and this is a genuine question, do you feel that you were at an electoral disadvantage?
You know, I never see myself through the lens of a minority. I see myself through the lens of a Singaporean. And I
Sure.
always make it a
I
point.
mean that's a politically correct answer, because
No.
we
Hear
know
me out.
from a very young age that society will, you may not see yourself as a minority, but society will remind you every now and again that you're a minority. No?
Yeah, but you see, and that's where I remind people that the first member of parliament in Potong Pasir, when he was formed as a constituency in 1968, was an Indian. His name was Selapa Ramaswamy, but he was uncontested. His successor was a Eurasian, Ivan Baptist, who served 2 terms. And he was standing in a predominantly Chinese area and still won. Now, as Rajaratnam, the first time there was an electoral contest post-independence, he was in Kampong Glam in 1976. He won. So did Jayakumar in Bedok, because he was my MP when I was a kid, right? All of them, sorry, I forgot to mention JB Jeyaretnam, 1981.
Right.
Murali Pillai in 2016. These are all single-member constituencies and who had minority candidates who were standing for elections and who won handsomely. Now, I cannot imagine that 55 years later, after independence, after we talk about, regardless of race, language, or religion, we are still talking about you are a minority and you have got a disadvantage. I tend not to see myself through those lenses, and even if people come up to me and tell me that oh, you're a minority, no wonder you lost, I'll say, well, then so be it. Then I've got to educate you that it is not the race, it is the person. And if you believe that this person is going to be able to bring value to the table, then you vote for him. If not, don't. Simple as that. Because I think that's how we also have, we help our electorate mature, so that you're able to see things through lenses,
Right.
not as, through our race, but through the value which they bring to the table. That's why, Professor Walid, you need to stand for elections as well. You need to cross that line and say, yes, I, Professor Walid Jumblatt, will stand for elections because I believe that I can bring value to the table as a Singaporean, not as a minority, but as a Singaporean. There you go.
I don't know how you got from the minority question to me joining politics, but I get that. I get that. I mean, I think that's the attitude every minority candidate should take, right? But at the same time, it's not wrong for somebody to feel an affinity towards somebody who looks like you, who speaks like you. And ethnicity is just one of those markers. It's just one of the markers. It can be gender, it can be sexuality, it can be religion, it can be football club, right? But wouldn't ethnicity still play a part in not racist voting, but racial voting?
Well, let me put it to you this way, right? Potong Pasir SMC, with its 19,500 voters or thereabouts, is predominantly Chinese. I still had 40% of the vote. So, that means that, I've actually crossed the racial boundaries in many, many ways. Because if I had not had the votes of the Chinese majority, I'll probably be hovering around 20 plus. Right. So I believe that in an educated population, educated electorate, they will more see the candidate who's standing there more than the race, or more than, I think they're going to see the value which the candidate brings to the table. And and that's not saying that, if I was another race, I'll do better. That's a crazy, dangerous line to get to. No, we should never cross that line, because, we see each other through the eyes of us being fellow Singaporeans.
Right. Okay. That would be in an ideal world, right? But politics.
No, but it's been like 55 years, and we are still talking about
America
racial.
has been independent for 200 years, right? And they are still talking
Yes.
about race. And So
of course, of course.
race
Yes,
so
it's always
visceral that,
it is something we've always been aspiring to, but we have got to continue realizing that we should look at ourselves more through the lens of Singaporeans as opposed to lens of being
Right.
through our races.
Right. Okay.
The next time the next time I have like a candidate who's a mixture of Chinese and Indian. What are we going to call him? Chindit? What are we going to call him?
Chindian.
Our first ever Chindian candidate.
Right.
You know, then what happens if it's a mixture between a Malay and a Chinese? What are we going to do?
Right. Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Right. Definitely. And I think the attitude that you are projecting, I think, is definitely how minority candidates should be thinking about elections. But I cannot discount the possibility that racial voting still occurs. I'm not saying whether elections turn on that. I just genuinely don't know.
But if racial voting occurs, how do you explain the victory of the Aljunied GRC team, which had three minorities, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you had three minorities, right? You had Leon, Pritam, and Faisal, right?
But see, the thing
in a predominantly Chinese area.
The thing is, right, for a minority, you have to be like Pritam level to win, right?
Absolutely, yes. So we got to all work doubly hard.
Right, exactly, right. You have to be Taman level to be considered, SM Taman to be considered.
Okay, so which means, from now onwards, I got to start learning a third or fourth language.
Yeah, exactly, right. Yeah. All right. So Jacqueline asked, and I have to answer this. Ask you this question. She's a mutual friend. Is there anything you would have done differently, something that you did wrong during the campaign that you wouldn't do again? The next time you're contesting in Aljunied.
Aljunied? Hey, what are you saying? What do you mean? I'm not contesting in Aljunied at all. Please.
No, the next time you're contesting, sorry. Yeah.
If I had done anything differently, well, I think I would have probably tried to reach out to the condominium dwellers, the residents in the condominiums, and maybe even in the private estate, Senate estate, a lot more than I spent. I don't think I spent enough time getting to know the residents in the condominiums as well as the Senate estate more than I did in the people in Juseng or Potong Pasir or maybe even Bidadari. And I think that was one regret which I had because, you see, like I said, the needs of the residents in the estate, in any estate, will differ. So the needs of people in the HDB dwellers will be very different from the needs of residents in the private estates. So yes, so my strategy was really, to take it down local. But what I could have done a bit more is go slightly more national. Talk about some of the issues which we face as a country. And I think that's something which I probably did not do enough of. And I think I should have.
Okay. Right. Okay. Thanks for that. That was refreshing. I think let's just continue for 5 more minutes because I'm enjoying this. Okay, so,
I already told you we will always, I always talk too much.
Right. So
and this always
you mentioned that different classes, different socioeconomic backgrounds would probably have different concerns, right? People
absolutely
from socioeconomic backgrounds.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't people from different racial backgrounds have different racial concerns?
They different racial concerns. I think people across the board have got concerns. If you speak to some of the Indians in the Indian community, even in Potong Pasir or anywhere else, one of the things they talk about is the erosion of the Tamil language. Sometimes then you speak to some of the Malay residents in Potong Pasir, even elsewhere. They will talk about the lack of opportunities, or even the fact that the ethnic integration policy, does not give them the opportunity to sell their homes to the open market.
And Sylvia mentioned yesterday, right? Yeah.
Correct. And we actually put that into our manifesto as well. Our party manifesto, the abolition of the ethnic integration policy. We actually put that in our manifesto. So you see, yes, that's why I think. What Sylvia actually spoke about yesterday is it's timely to have those discussions because it does lead to issues with some of our minority friends face on the ground.
Right.
They do have problems selling to someone from their own race because, and even when they do end up selling at a lower price than they would have to if they had sold it on the open market to anyone.
Right.
These are concerns which people face. Yes, I do know the counter narrative to this. Or if we do that, then there'll be racial enclaves. But then when it comes at the back, or when our policies come at the back of someone losing out, then I have a problem with that. It only means that we're not being fair. We're not being fair. We are supposed to be fair to everybody.
Right.
You see?
Okay. Yeah.
And what's the point of having an ethnic integration policy in the housing estates, in HDB estates, when none exists in the condominiums? And sometimes you have got enclaves building up in some of the condos, and you know that this exists.
Right.
Which,
So
I think we got to be fair.
Yeah, I think Sylvia Slim, as you said, Sylvia's speech was so timely, and I think we really need to take it seriously, whatever she said. So my final question to you is, before I ask you for
final so far.
Final
really?
Question, yes. It's almost 45 minutes already.
But I haven't even started asking you any questions yet.
So, who's your favorite PAP MP and why? In the spirit of rapprochement and we do not want polarization. So can you?
But are you going to tell me your favorite PAP MP as well?
Okay, I can tell you later.
All right, set the deal. Okay. Can I perhaps share a former PAP MP? Does that count?
Oh, former, that's a cop-out. Why not a current one?
Because I haven't worked with the guys in the current parliament as much as I did in the previous parliament.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes, good. Yeah. Well, my, and I'll give you the reason why I am going to say this guy was my favorite PAP MP. It's also, I'll explain the reason why. He's Teo Salak.
Oh,
Salak,
that's a surprise. Yeah, why is that?
Let me explain why. And this is when, when I was a civil servant, I was a journalist when I first got to know him. And then when I joined public service, I was in a sports council, which is Sports Singapore now. And along with him, we worked on many projects together because he was our senior parliamentary secretary. We worked on Asian Youth Games. We worked on YOG. During the YOG, I was his press secretary. He was a Youth Olympic Games village mayor, and I was his press secretary. And in the course of my time in Sports Singapore, I was head of communications, like Singapore's media attaché for our Team Singapore contingent to a couple of games, and these include the Asian Games to Guangzhou in 2010 and the Commonwealth Games in Delhi in 2010. So let me share with you something which happened in 2010 in Delhi, which really made me realize that this is someone I'll take a bullet for.
Wow.
Okay, so we are traveling in the same car, visiting all our athletes who are participating in the competitions. So it was Delhi, and it was hot, hot. So we were traveling. Obviously we have a driver, and we were traveling to some of the multiple venues, and along the road, right? I was sitting on one side of the car, he was sitting on the other side of the car. We were both staring out. Okay, I mean, we were having some conversation, but we were staring out, and we saw that there were police officers who were guarding them. I mean, who were standing throughout the entire road, lining up the streets, leading to the competition venues. And we both saw something but we never said anything to each other. But we saw, and what we saw was this: it was hot. There was no shelter. There was no umbrellas. The police officers, the Indian police officers, were just standing. They were perspiring, and they had no water bottles around them. Okay? So let me tell you what instinctively we did. When we went to the next venue, and in the venue because we had passes, right? So we had got hospitality, we have got VIP area, VVIP areas, and we went and visited our athletes, they stayed for a bit. On the way out, he asked me this question: do you have a bag? I said, yeah, I do. You know what we did? We went and emptied all the water bottles, the cold water from the fridge refrigerators in the VVIP area. We just emptied everything. Wow. And when we went out, along the way, when we were driving out, we stopped and gave the water bottle to every single police officer along that entire stretch.
Wow.
Instinctively. So it doesn't matter who you are, but when we see that, that basically showed me that this is a human being.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I'm very impressed, especially when he has nothing to gain from that. And
we have nothing to gain.
Right.
We have nothing to gain. But you know what? We went and emptied the water, all the cold water, the Lucozade and whatever was in there. We just emptied without anyone seeing, put into our bag, and then we started distributing out on the way out. And from then on, even though we have our differences in opinion sometimes, I ended up serving him when I exited. When I joined, he asked me to help him out in the CDC, Northeast CDC, when I was a mayor. I ended up serving in the CDC for about 4 years. Because and even till today, we are still in contact. We are, once in a while he'll text me, he'll disturb me. After the elections, he sent me saying, not bad, first timer, So I think, but it was that moment, what I saw, which made me realize that I will take a bullet for this guy.
Wow.
And I think
That's
this is where,
praise.
I think, and plus we all, both of us are kind of like sports activists. We love sports. We talk sports all the time, when we were in service, every now and then, and even till today, sometimes I know he doesn't like me, probably not like me telling me this, but he would check in on me and ask me, how is that athlete doing? Does he need help? How's that athlete doing? Does he need help? And we help. We go and help those athletes out. So you see, that's when it doesn't matter. They know. I think someone like him will know that, even though, yes, I wear a different party political flag, but we care for people. And I think he cares for people.
Wow. That's a very nice story to hear. Thanks for that. So do you have 3 recommendations for
you
me?
Have
not
answered my question.
Sorry, I forgot.
Your favorite
So my favorite PAP MP is the next one who comes on this show. The next one who comes.
You got me. That's terrible. That's a cop out. That is a cop out.
So, do you have 3 recommendations for me for who I should try to approach aggressively to come on this show?
I agree with Basir Siswo that you should get Pritam Singh on board. That's one, right? And but I'm very sure he's not going to be as humorous as I am. So challenge thrown to him. Okay, I will. Anyone who is on texting terms with Pritam, please convey that message to. I think you should also try to get SM Tharman. I think obviously there are a lot of people who would enjoy listening to his wisdom, and I think maybe one of the backbenchers. Whom I believe has got a lot to offer, and who's also who's also one of the new faces. And I think you can also talk to her about issues faced by women who come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds. I think Carrie Tan has got a lot to offer. I think in terms of her background, into where she came from and setting up Babes and setting up Daughters of Tomorrow. So I believe that you'll be able to at least have somebody who's done it, been in politics for so long, who's constantly being put into a limelight as one of Singapore's most wisest economists or politicians. And then you've got this new PAPMP, Carrie, who's actually done a lot of work in social service organizations. And who obviously, cares for people. So I think these are 2 people you should. Plus Prisama. These 3 are my. I thought you were going to ask me for, what's my 3 recommendations for food to eat in Potong Pasir. I was about to rattle off the 3 food places for you to go eat.
That one I'll text you later. So, Mr. Jose, thank you very much. This was very, very enjoyable. I'm sure the audience agrees that this was the most light-hearted one, but serious.
No, thanks for having me on board. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, and for your candid nature as well. So I'll be uploading this, and I don't think there's any good Teh Tarik in Potong Pasir. You should come over to the east sometimes.
All right, I'll take you up on that offer one of these days.
Okay, that is one.
But you should offer, say yes and enter politics. That's what you should do as well.